I never imagined my life would shatter in a hospital room while holding a DNA test. 8 years of marriage to Amanda built on what I thought was love and trust, destroyed by one piece of paper. The child she had given birth to, the one I had celebrated for 9 months, was not mine. It was my brother Jason's. The betrayal cut deeper when I discovered my own mother knew. She had approved of their affair, all for a grandchild with family blood. If you are watching this, what would you do in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow my journey through this family nightmare. The day I met Amanda still feels like yesterday. It was at the company Christmas party in Seattle, December 2015. I was 35 and working as a project manager at Tech Future, a growing software company. Amanda worked in marketing. Her bright smile and intelligent conversation immediately caught my attention. She wore a red dress that night, her dark hair falling just past her shoulders. We talked until security started turning off the lights. Our dating phase was the happiest time of my life. We explored Washington State together, hiking the trails around Mount Rainier and taking weekend trips to small coastal towns. After 2 years of dating, I proposed at the same hotel where we had first met during the next Christmas party. Everyone applauded when she said yes, tears streaming down her face. The first 5 years of marriage were everything I had hoped for. We bought a modest house in the suburbs of Seattle, with a small yard and enough room for the family we planned to have. Amanda decorated each room with care, creating a warm home that friends loved visiting. We hosted barbecues in summer and holiday parties in winter. Life seemed perfect. Our plan was simple: focus on our careers for a few years, then start a family when we felt ready. Amanda wanted 2 children, a boy and a girl. We even picked out potential names during late-night conversations. I wanted to name our future son after my grandfather Thomas, while Amanda loved the name Lily for a daughter. The trouble began in our 6th year of marriage, when we started trying for a baby. Month after month, Amanda would take pregnancy tests, and each negative result dimmed the light in her eyes a little more. After a year of trying naturally, we decided to see specialists. The diagnosis hit me like a truck. I had severe oligospermia, extremely low sperm count that made natural conception nearly impossible. I started treatment, immediately determined to give Amanda the family she dreamed of. The medications, the appointments, the procedures, they all took a toll on both of us. I felt less of a man somehow, though Amanda insisted it changed nothing between us. We discussed alternatives like IVF and adoption, but Amanda seemed hesitant, always saying we should give the treatments more time. My relationship with my younger brother Jason had always been complicated. Growing up in Portland, we were close as children, building forts in the backyard and defending each other from neighborhood bullies. But as we entered our teens, something shifted. Jason always seemed to want what I had, whether it was my baseball cards, my friends, or the attention of our parents. He followed me to the same college, chose the same major, even applied to the same companies. When I moved to Seattle with Amanda, Jason stayed in Portland, and I secretly felt relieved at the distance. But about 3 years ago, he suddenly announced he was relocating to Seattle too, claiming a great job opportunity. At first, I welcomed having family nearby, especially since our parents were still back in Portland. Jason started visiting our house frequently. At first, I thought nothing of it. He was alone in a new city, and families should support each other. I was often working late trying to secure a promotion to help pay for our fertility treatments. So I was actually grateful that Amanda had company. They seemed to get along well, and I was happy 2 of the most important people in my life had bonded. When Amanda announced her pregnancy, I was overjoyed. After nearly 2 years of treatments and disappointments, it seemed like a miracle. I wept when she showed me the positive test, immediately planning nursery colors and reading parenting books. I attended every appointment possible, marveling at ultrasound images and recording the heartbeat on my phone to play back at night. Looking back, the signs were there, but I was too blinded by happiness to see them. Amanda became protective of her phone, changing passwords and turning the screen away when I entered the room. Our intimacy decreased, which she attributed to pregnancy discomfort. She seemed anxious when Jason and I were together, watching our interactions with unusual intensity. We started having small arguments over nothing. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones and tried to be understanding. I worked harder at the office, earning that promotion to senior manager, wanting to provide the best life possible for our growing family. The nursery was painted a soft green, filled with furniture I assembled on weekends, and toys sent by excited friends and family. My sister Samantha was the first to voice concerns. During a rare visit from Portland, she pulled me aside after dinner while Amanda was resting upstairs. I remember her exact words. "Clinton, have you noticed how Jason looks at Amanda, or how they seem to have inside jokes you are not part of?" I dismissed her concerns, immediately accusing her of trying to cause drama, as she sometimes did. Samantha left angry, and we did not speak for weeks after. I wish I had listened. The day my world collapsed started as the happiest of my life. Amanda went into labor 3 weeks early, and I rushed her to Swedish Medical Center in the middle of the night. After 14 hours of labor, our child, a boy, was born. They placed him in my arms, and I felt a surge of love, unlike anything before. But something nagged at the back of my mind. The baby had a full head of curly red hair, a trait that appeared nowhere in my family but was prominent in Amanda's. I pushed the thought away, focusing instead on supporting Amanda and learning to care for our son. We named him Thomas after my grandfather as planned. The first few days at home were exhausting but wonderful. Friends visited with gifts, and my parents drove up from Portland to meet their grandson. My mother, Linda, seemed unusually emotional, holding Thomas for hours and studying his features with an intensity that struck me as odd at the time. The revelation came accidentally during a routine newborn checkup. The nurse reviewing Thomas's charts casually mentioned his blood type and asked about mine, noting a potential incompatibility that seemed medically impossible if I were the father. Amanda quickly changed the subject, but I saw panic flash across her face. That night, after Amanda fell asleep, I sat in the nursery looking at Thomas. Doubt crept in like poison. I ordered a home DNA test online, collecting samples while Amanda was showering. The 2 weeks waiting for results were the longest of my life. I alternated between guilt for doubting Amanda and dread that my suspicions might be valid. The email came on a Tuesday morning while Amanda was grocery shopping with Thomas. The clinical language did nothing to soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. I read it 17 times, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. Instead of confronting Amanda immediately, I needed more information. I installed recovery software on our shared laptop, accessing deleted messages between her and Jason. What I found shattered any hope this was a mistake or a one-time indiscretion. Hundreds of messages spanning more than a year, detailing their affair and their plan to conceive a child together while letting me believe it was mine. When Amanda returned home, Thomas sleeping peacefully in his carrier, I could barely look at her. I waited until she had settled, then wordlessly handed her the printed DNA results and screenshots of the messages. Her face crumpled, not in shame but in frustration that their secret had been discovered. "It was not supposed to happen like this," she said quietly, not denying anything. How exactly was it supposed to happen? My voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. Amanda explained with disturbing calmness. After learning of my infertility, she and Jason had grown closer during his visits. One thing led to another, and when they began their affair, they saw an opportunity. Since Jason and I shared DNA, a child from him would still be part of my bloodline. In her mind, it was a solution that gave everyone what they wanted. "We did this for you too," she insisted. "You wanted a family. This way, Thomas is still your blood." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Jason entered without waiting for an answer obviously expected. Seeing my expression, he immediately realized I knew everything. "Clinton, I know this seems bad, but if you think about it logically, logic, as if betrayal by your wife and brother could be rationalized." As Jason continued explaining their twisted reasoning, something broke inside me. I ordered them both out of my house, my voice rising until I was shouting words I never thought I would say to either of them. Amanda pleaded to take Thomas, but in my anger I refused, saying I needed time to process everything before deciding next steps. After they left, I called my parents, desperate for support. My father expressed shock and outrage, promising to drive up immediately. But my mother's reaction froze my blood. She sighed, as if dealing with a difficult child. "Clinton, I know this is hard, but maybe you should consider what they were trying to do. Jason told us about your condition months ago. At least this way, Thomas's family." The betrayal expanded exponentially. My own mother had known about their plan and approved. Her desire for a biological grandchild had outweighed any concern for my feelings or marriage. When I hung up, I sat in the nursery watching Thomas sleep, an innocent child caught in a web of adult deception. I could not stay in that house filled with lies. I packed essentials for myself, and Thomas left a note saying I was taking him temporarily while arranging proper custody discussions, and checked into a hotel near my office. That night, rocking a fussy Thomas while staring out at the Seattle skyline, I made the hardest call of my life to a family law attorney. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal consultations, sleepless nights caring for Thomas, and endless calls and messages from Amanda, Jason, and my mother. They oscillated between apologies, justifications, and demands that I be reasonable and return home with Thomas. My attorney, Sarah Davidson, was direct about my options. Since I was named as father on the birth certificate but was not biologically related, the situation was complicated. She recommended filing for divorce immediately and requesting DNA testing through official channels to establish paternity. This would protect me from financial obligations while ensuring Thomas's welfare was properly addressed. Amanda responded to the divorce filing with shock, as if she had expected me to eventually accept her betrayal. She hired an aggressive attorney who argued that regardless of biology, I had accepted the role of father and should therefore have full financial responsibility for Thomas. They requested primary custody for Amanda with liberal visitation for me, plus substantial child support and alimony. Meanwhile, my family splintered along unexpected lines. My mother and Jason called constantly, insisting I was overreacting. "Family sticks together," my mother repeated, as if the concept applied only to my obligations and not to the loyalty they should have shown me. My father initially supported me, but gradually fell silent, unwilling to oppose my mother directly. Only Samantha stood firmly by my side. She drove up from Portland and helped me find a short-term apartment. She watched Thomas during my meetings with lawyers and brought home cooked meals when I forgot to eat. Her unwavering support was the only thing keeping me functioning. At work, I tried to maintain normalcy, though concentration was nearly impossible. My performance suffered, and my boss, Michael, called me into his office. I expected a warning but received compassion instead. Michael closed the door and revealed he had overheard a personal call. Rather than reprimanding me, he shared that he had experienced a similar betrayal in his first marriage. He adjusted my workload temporarily and connected me with a therapist specializing in trauma and a support group for men dealing with family crises. Just as I was establishing a tenuous routine, disaster struck. While checking my accounts to pay rent, I discovered Amanda and Jason had emptied our joint savings account 2 days after I left, taking nearly $70,000 we had saved for a potential move to a larger house. My attorney filed emergency motions, but the money was gone, transferred through multiple accounts. The true breaking point came 3 weeks after my discovery. I was in a meeting with important clients when my assistant interrupted, panic evident in her eyes. My mother had arrived at the office, demanding to see me immediately. Before security could intervene, she burst into the conference room, screaming that I was destroying our family, that my stubbornness was hurting an innocent child, and that no real man would abandon his responsibilities. The clients sat in stunned silence as security finally escorted her out. Michael smoothly took over the meeting while I retreated to my office, humiliated and furious. What should have been a career-enhancing presentation became a showcase of my personal problems. Later that afternoon, Michael assured me my job was secure but suggested taking some personal time to sort things out. The custody and divorce proceedings intensified. In family court, Amanda presented herself as a devoted mother, shocked by her husband's sudden abandonment. Jason testified that they had only turned to each other after my fertility issues caused me to become distant and work obsessively. My mother supported their version, describing me as stubborn and unable to accept help from family. I sat at the defendant table feeling like I had entered a parallel universe where I was somehow the villain. The judge seemed sympathetic to Amanda's tears and my mother's impassioned defense of family values. My attorney looked increasingly concerned as the hearing progressed, whispering that judges often favor maintaining financial support for children regardless of biological connections. Then, as Amanda's attorney was summarizing their position, the courtroom door opened. Samantha walked in, followed by Amanda's sister Bethany, whom I had always liked but rarely saw since she moved to Chicago years ago. They requested to present new evidence, and despite objections, the judge allowed it. What followed was a systematic dismantling of the narrative Amanda and Jason had constructed. Samantha presented text messages between herself and Amanda from before the pregnancy, where Amanda complained about my devotion to starting a family and confessed she had been looking for alternatives. Bethany reluctantly shared emails Amanda had sent detailing how she had deliberately sabotaged my fertility treatments by replacing medications and creating stress to prevent improvement. Most damning was a journal Amanda had kept, which Bethany had discovered while helping pack Amanda's childhood belongings from their parents' home. In it, Amanda detailed her growing resentment of my desire for children, her affair with Jason, and their plan to conceive a child together while letting me believe it was the result of treatments. The final entry, dated just weeks before Thomas's birth, expressed anxiety about the deception, but determined they were too far in to back out now. I sat frozen as these revelations unfolded, each worse than the last. The betrayal was not a momentary weakness or misguided attempt to create family. It was calculated deception spanning years. As the judge called a recess to review the new evidence, I fled to the bathroom and vomited until nothing remained but bitter bile. A physical manifestation of my emotional state. The aftermath of the court revelations transformed my case. The judge, initially leaning toward Amanda's position, ruled entirely in my favor. I was legally established as having no parental obligations to Thomas. The divorce was granted with no alimony requirements. Amanda and Jason were ordered to repay the emptied accounts, though I held little hope of seeing that money again. I made the hardest decision of my life regarding Thomas. Though I had cared for him during those early weeks and felt a connection, I recognized that maintaining involvement would keep me bound to toxic people who had shown no true remorse. I arranged for a clean break, though I did set up a small trust fund for his education that could only be accessed when he turned 18. He was innocent in all this, and someday he might need to know someone had thought of his future. With legal matters settled, I needed physical distance to heal. I sold the house, splitting proceeds as ordered by the court, and accepted a transfer to my company's Boston office. Starting over across the country at 36 was terrifying, but remaining in Seattle meant risking unwanted encounters and constant reminders. The early months in Boston were intensely lonely. I rented a sparse apartment downtown, worked long hours, and spoke to no one except Samantha during our weekly video calls. The support group Michael had connected me with had chapters nationwide, and reluctantly, I began attending meetings in Boston. Listening to other men share stories of betrayal and recovery gradually helped me process my anger. In the group, I met people who would become crucial to my healing. Brian, a professor whose wife had hidden gambling addiction that destroyed their finances. Derek, who discovered his 3 children were not biologically his after his wife's death. And Rachel, a therapist who facilitated the group after experiencing her own family betrayal when her sister and husband had an affair. Rachel became a particular friend, our conversations extending beyond group meetings to coffee shops and walks along Boston Harbor. She helped me understand that my feelings were valid, but should not define my future. When I confessed my deepest fear that my infertility made me somehow unworthy of family, she challenged that thinking with compassionate firmness. Biology is the smallest part of being a parent, she insisted. Love, presence, and choice make a family. Gradually, I rebuilt myself. I joined a rowing club, rediscovering physical activity I had enjoyed in college. I made friends at work, eventually sharing abbreviated versions of my story when appropriate. I consulted with medical specialists about my condition, accepting that biological children might never be possible, but learning that my self-worth should never hinge on this fact. 6 months into my new life, my father called. He and my mother had separated. Her support of Jason and Amanda's deception had revealed fundamental differences in their values that could not be reconciled. He apologized for not standing more firmly with me from the beginning, explaining that 50 years of marriage had made him reluctant to oppose her weakness he now regretted deeply. That conversation began a slow rebuilding of our relationship. He visited Boston twice that year, and we found our way back to the easy companionship of my childhood. He never pressured me to reconcile with my mother or Jason, respecting my need for distance. A year after moving to Boston, I received a call from Samantha with unexpected news. Amanda and Jason's relationship had imploded spectacularly. After Thomas's first birthday, Jason had begun pulling away, eventually announcing he had taken a job in California and had no interest in raising a kid I never wanted in the first place. Amanda was devastated, suddenly understanding how it felt to be abandoned by someone you trusted. Amanda reached out through Samantha, asking if I would consider reconciliation now that she understood my pain. The old Clinton might have wavered, remembering our good years together. But I had grown stronger. I declined firmly, but without malice, wishing her healing and growth on her own journey. That Christmas, I flew my father and Samantha to Boston. In my now properly furnished apartment with a small tree and modest gifts, we created new traditions. As we shared a meal I had cooked myself, I realized I felt something I had not expected to feel again: peace. Not complete happiness yet, but genuine contentment with the family I still had and the life I was creating. The deepest wound I experienced taught me that family is not defined by blood or legal documents. True family is built on respect, honesty, and unconditional support. The people who stand with you during your darkest moments, who hold space for your pain without demanding you suppress it, those are your real family, regardless of genetic connections. I still think about Thomas, sometimes hoping he finds stability and love despite his complicated beginning. I have updated his trust each year, a quiet acknowledgement that innocent lives deserve protection, even amid adult chaos. Perhaps someday, when he is grown, we might meet as individuals separate from the circumstances of his conception. As for me, I am considering becoming a foster parent, possibly adopting eventually. Not to fill a void or prove anything, but because I have love to give and understand now that family can be chosen and created in many ways. Life rarely follows the paths we imagine for ourselves. Sometimes the detours through pain lead to destinations far more beautiful than our original plans. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that eventually led to something positive in your life? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. Share with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story today. Remember, family is who loves you truly, not who shares your DNA.